I must have done more than 10 internships during my college time. When I did all of that, I got a very clear lay of the land that in what field, what is the expectation of done a skydive in Australia. Just reset my brain in terms of what fear means. For millennials, I think they are the generation which is now approaching parenthood. Yeah. So for them, the stability aspect is very important. For Gen Z, the excitement, the learning, the newness is more important.
Everyone, welcome to I'm a Recruiter podcast. I'm your host, Prafula Devi. I'm thrilled to have you with us today. I'm a Recruiter is more than just a podcast. It is movement by and for talent acquisition professionals. And we are here to set things up. Our vision is to create a seamless network of recruiters from classroom to boardroom. Our mission is to create a collaborative platform that connects and empowers any TA professionals providing end-to-end support across talent acquisition landscape. If you are getting value out of our content, please don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe, share, and let us know what you think in the comment section. Let's build a community together. With this, it's time to welcome our next guest at I'm a Recruiter podcast. So we have someone very special today. Her name is Mehak Ramdev. She is basically an early career recruiter at Optum with a multifaceted role in talent engagement, branding, experience management. Mehak brings a wealth of knowledge and experience into our discussion. So with this, we are really excited to have you at I'm a Recruiter podcast. Again, it will be just a basic conversation between two recruiters, right? So we would love to know a bit about you, then followed by what are the different things you have done in talent acquisition space, specifically in campus recruitment. And we'll try to talk a little bit about Gen Z and millennials and all those aspects as well, because with time, things get changed, right? Great. So with this, once again, welcome, Mehak, and thank you so much for your time.
Very glad to be here.
Great.
I have been following I'm a Recruiter for a while, and the value that you guys are providing, it's incredible.
Thank you so much. For our audience, right? So who Mehak Ramdev basically is, if you could quickly brief a little bit about your background.
Okay, so hi everybody, Ramdev. I would say started working in HR informally when the pandemic hit through internships or projects or some sort of ad hoc work that ultimately got converted into a job. So informally, I have around 5 years of experience in HR and project management. But if we say formally full time, it's around 3.5 years. In all my roles, I have done a lot of marketing and HR, sometimes separately, sometimes combined. So in my current role, I'm looking at the candidate lifecycle strategy as a whole. But in addition to that, I'm also looking at the employer branding aspects, the assets that we take on campus. How can we make people know what Optum is? So my organization is a Fortune 4 organization. It's, I would say, gives competition to your Metas and Facebooks, Microsoft's, Googles of the world, but people don't know about the organization. So my job, in addition to hire the best talent, is for them to know that, this company is also the best.
Yes, great. We'd love to know a little bit more as well. What is your background? Like, what kind of schooling you had? How were you as a student? Because this question we generally try to ask every guest of ours, because many feel that they should be very studious or very good with education. Some try to share about their journey, what they have done in schooling, because some are good in sports and other things as well. So what kind of students were you?
So I think in school, I was one of the students who did not like to sit in the class at all. I was fully into extracurriculars. So even my teachers were like, oh, heck is in class today. Okay, so there must not be any event that's going on. I used to score well. That's mostly because in school, I used to treat it as my fun time. And at home, I used to be like, okay, now it's the time to study with tuitions or whatever. So that was my school background. But then coming to college, I did my bachelor's in commerce from Delhi University. BCom honors I did from a college called Aryabhat. It's a fairly new college in Delhi University located in the South Campus. So I would say the geography of the college was so good. I had that campus experience as well. And I was surrounded by very good colleges. So I had that exposure. And again, my extracurricular, I would say, spark went to college as well with me. I was part of a society called Enactus, which is a social entrepreneurship club. And I was also in the dramatics club. So I did a lot of street plays during my first year. And during my second and third year, I was fully into social entrepreneurship. I'm the batch that got impacted by COVID during my college times. So a couple of years I was at home. So I was juggling internships along with college work, along with extracurriculars all together. But it was a very fun time. And I think that experience that I got in my school and college with respect to, so I have always been a speaker. Like I would say that's my skill. So, that helped me transition into a field like HR where you have to do a lot of talking and meeting people.
Yes. Great. Good to know that you were good with lots of extracurricular activities as well. And from commerce to HR, how was the transition? Like, you did your commerce? There are lots of different things you could have done. Like, how did you ended up in HR, that too in campus recruitment?
So I feel HR is such a fun place to be because you never have an entry to barrier. Even if you're from science, arts, commerce, nobody cares as long as you're a good person.
Yes.
With commerce, I had only taken up BCom honors as my major because that's all I knew. But I had done commerce in my school. So I was like, after that, the only natural way to go is, either a BCom honors or a BBA or a BMS. So I did that. And I always wanted to go into the corporate side of things. So I had that clarity, luckily. So I took BCom honors, even though it's an accounting degree by nature. But in India, it's treated as a management degree itself. And as I mentioned that I was the COVID batch. So during that time, I had the advantage to do a lot of internships. I must have done more than 10 internships during my college time. Some in finance, some in operations, some in HR, some in social media. When I did all of that, I got a very clear lay of the land that in what field, what is the expectation of a person. And through elimination is how I reached to HR. That, I tried everything. This is what I feel like I'm suited for. So I'll go ahead in this.
Yes. I think many people still struggle to understand where their real interest or real strength is, right? And because of those internship, I believe you have the clarity. You have done everything. So you explore, hey, it is my strength. It is not my strength. I'm liking this. I'm not liking this. And because of that, I think that is one of the good way as well. But 10 internship, that's huge, right?
A lot of them were in parallel also because I was at home. So, some of them were unpaid internships, so they did not have very high expectations as well. So I remember there was a point where I was doing 3 internships plus college extracurriculars.
My God.
And I was just sitting at home in front of my laptop with like millions of tabs open, just shifting from one task to another. But it was very fun because you are stuck at home, you don't have anything to do. So I was just like, you know what, let's make this time productive.
Yes. So like after that, once you did your internship, how did you started your corporate journey?
Okay, so after I had done a fair share of internships and I had decided on that HR is the place that I want to be, the current organization that I'm working on, they had an internship opening for 2 months.
Okay.
So I applied for it. I got to the interview stage and I sold all the experience that I had till then. In the interview, it was more DEI and project related within HR. And those were 2 of my interest areas at that time as well. So within the Enactus Society, it's like a social entrepreneurship club where we run our own businesses. So from idea generation to getting the money to creating the product to selling it, the entire piece is with us. So I personally think that was the selling point of me getting this internship, that valuable experience that I got in my college. And then that 2-month internship became a 6-month, then a year, and then it became my job. So I joined this current organization 4 years ago as an intern for 2 months, but I never left. I'm still here.
Nice to know. Can you also talk a little bit about your social entrepreneurship? What exactly that means? Because not every recruiter have the opportunity to explore the entrepreneurship journey or know in depth about that, right? They are mostly stuck with recruitment related stuff, HR related stuff. So what exactly social entrepreneurship means?
So with respect to the society that I was a part of, the entire idea was we will run a sustainable business. Us as students, we will earn money, but we will not take money out of the business. We will give it to our beneficiaries or we will invest it right back into the business. And whatever product that we're selling is a sustainable product. So UN has a couple of sustainable goals, SDGs we call them. So each project within Enactus, it's a global organization. You are meant to tick off a couple of projects. If I'm helping women, then I tick off that. If I'm helping the wildlife, I tick off that. If I'm, helping life underwater, then I tick off that. So one of our biggest projects was Project Palash. What we did there was we took discarded flower petals from temples. We extracted color out of them and we dyed the cloth. Then we stitched it and we sold it. And this entire practice, so we had established the entire chain and the technique. Then we taught human trafficking victims. We had collaborated with an NGO. We taught the victims there who were associated with that NGO how they can perform these entire activities themselves. And ultimately, the goal of Enactus as a organization is to shift that business to the beneficiaries so it becomes their business and they can run it for years too.
Okay, great, interesting. Because not every college or every student have the opportunity to do different or explore different things during their education time. But I think your college have given you a very good opportunity to learn as well as to explore. Great, good to know that. So we have also spoken about how you ended up in HR and recruitment and other stuff. So let's talk a little bit about it's not always good in recruitment. There has been lots of different challenges, different struggles. So what are some of your significant challenges you have faced in talent acquisition that too in early career? And how did you overcome them?
So specifically with early careers, I would say everything that you do, like in early careers, you directly go to a campus and you hire students when their placement drive is going on. That's how the market works in India. Over there, I am competing directly for slots with your Google, your Microsoft, your Adobe. And even though I am hiring for a tech role, a student who does not know about an organization, they'll be like, Google is the best company, or Microsoft is the best company. Even if I'm paying more than them, they will go towards the company which they know because they know the reputation of that company. So one of the challenges that we faced was to establish us as a market leader in the eyes of the students. So we did a lot of branding activities on campus, fun activities, educational activities, so that maybe not today, maybe 5 years later, a student knows which company we are coming from and that this is a good place. I remember they came to my campus when I was in college, maybe even if we can't be their first job, we would love to be their second job, let's say. But despite of that challenge, I think we overcame it fabulously. We have a very big demand number and we have been able to fill it every year. In fact, we've had more students. So over the past 3-4 years, we have established our brand very well in campus. Luckily, my organization pays really well in tech as well. So students already know that my senior who went to this company got good money. Except for that, I think another challenge that we faced, I think that was very pandemic specific, was when we were shifting from offline recruiting to online recruiting. A lot of panels, especially the interviewers, they did not know how they can properly evaluate a candidate online. So some things that we had to do was a lot like trainings. We had set up special trainings for them so that they could be educated on the best practices of taking a virtual interview. For example, it does not leave a good impression if the panel has the camera off but the candidate has the camera on. Or if it's just, question from one side and answer from one side. It should be a conversation. It should be free flowing.
Yes.
Yeah. And how you make somebody comfortable in a virtual environment is also some of the points that we touch.
Very important. And you have also mentioned that you have done lots of different talent branding related stuff as well. Definitely during campus time also, talent branding plays a very important role. So what are the different things as a campus recruiter you have done? And how did you implement those things in your organization?
A couple of years ago, we used to run a case study competition for engineering and business schools called Stratathon. It was a pan-India, in fact, it was an international competition where we would have launched case studies and there was an entire event with an in-person finale. That was one of our big campus engagement events. In addition to that, we have launched a couple more IBs throughout the year where we go on campus, we do leadership talks, we do mentorship sessions, or maybe we do fun activities. The fun activities part usually happens when a candidate has accepted the offer but they have not joined yet. So how it works in campuses, I hire a candidate almost 9 months before they join.
Yeah.
So keeping those 9 months engaged for the candidate have been some of my own projects. Like we call it a keep warm program. We keep the candidate warm.
Okay.
So how do we keep them warm throughout those 9 months? Do engagement sessions, we do contests, we do fun activities so that even before they enter the workforce, they know some of their peers.
Yes. I think during COVID time, many organizations also tried to do similar thing just to keep the candidate engaged, because post COVID, I think there were lots of competition in the market. Companies were paying crazy amount of salary as well, right? And to engage candidate, those were few of the things other companies also tried. Great, good to know that. So I was just going through your profile in LinkedIn as well, and I saw that you have been part of some event which you have hosted, or you were part of some festival also. Can you talk about that as well?
So that is not at all recruitment related.
Yes.
So what happened was, one of my friends, he owns a media agency.
Okay.
And I love to expand my knowledge, basically. So he was looking for some volunteers who could help out during an event. And I was like, you know what? It's a weekend. I'm free. I'll be there. So I helped the team manage the production of all the brands that we were covering. So it was a sneaker festival. It was a very large event. 21 Savage was also there.
Okay.
So a lot of brands had reached out to us that we want to be covered in this event. Like, you make an after movie for us. So the production of that, how many staff we need, what does the idea look like, the deliverables, all of that. So I helped manage that in that project. It was very fun weekend event, a different pace of work than we usually do in corporate. Everything is so structured. You need 5 different approvals before you can do something. That event was everything on ground, everything. Okay, right now I'm looking at this. I am the one who's the approver. If I feel like it's good to go, I'll make it good to go.
And I think through that, you can learn lots of things in real ground itself, right? Because I do agree that with corporate, the approval, the processes, sometimes it's good, but sometimes it stops your being, how to say, the creativity just goes away, right? Good to know that you do different things. And when Mehak is not working, what's he love to do?
I think being part of various events is one thing. I love to travel and I'm a very avid yoga lover. I feel like that those are the 2-3 things that kind of define me. I'm always curious to learn new things. So even if tomorrow somebody comes up to me and says that, do this project, I would happily pick it up because my learning curve there will be there. I get bored of doing the same thing. Like if my plate is there, I want 50% monotonous and 50% creative.
Yes.
So that I have a flavor of both, some BAU and some fun stuff.
That's true. Can you also tell some of the crazy things you have done during your non-working hours, like some of the fun things you have done?
I have done a skydive in Australia just like last year. So it was in my bucket list. So I think 12,000 feet. I jumped from 12,000 feet and it was crazy. I was very scared. I think the video that I have of me skydiving is so funny because everybody's usually like, I was like, because I was scared a mosquito will fly in my mouth. So I think the craziest thing that I've done is that I've done a skydive.
It takes lots of courage as well, right?
Yes.
Because when I see those videos, I don't feel like trying, even though I know that it's a great experience. But sometimes I don't have the courage, to be very honest. But good to know that you are great, courageous. And it is a real experience as well, right?
I think the scariest part of it is when you're sitting on the ledge of a plane. So the plane that we go up in, it does not have a door and you kind of jump as per your weight. So I was the last one who jumped from the plane. So I already saw three people jump before me. And at the last, I'm just sitting there looking at the ground. I can't see anything. There is a layer of clouds. I can't see anything. And when we jumped, it actually felt like we're going through the clouds. And I was lucky enough to do it on a beach side. So I got the full ocean view of Australia.
And when you now you have gone through that experience, right? How do you feel about it now?
I think it reset my brain in terms of what fear means.
Okay. And what do you suggest other people who are stuck with their fears, like me?
I think everybody has their own thing. So some people are scared of water. For them, skydive would be easier. But if somebody's scared of heights, a cold plunge might be easier for them. So during that trip, I did a cold plunge as well, where it was like I would sit in a 1 or 2 degree water for a couple of minutes and then go into the sauna, then come out, sit in that water. So basically what it does is it resets your body on a biological level.
Okay.
That also kind of, once you go through something so intense, you feel like, you know what, it resets your baseline for fear. Like
Okay.
things kind of become in perspective. Ki, "Theek hai, what's the worst that could happen? I'll fix it." That's kind of how I approach all my work projects as well. That, even if somebody in my team has messed up or I have messed up, it's not like we're doctors. It's not like somebody's dying, right? We can fix it. Just take accountability for your actions. Let's move on. Let's find a solution.
I do agree, right? Finding the solution is important, right? Since we are talking about learning and moving ahead, let's talk about current market trends as well, right? So as a campus recruiter, you see lots of things trending in campus and around campus, in and around campus, right? So what are some of the emerging trends you have seen in campus as well as in recruitment industry currently?
I would say if I have to predict for the next 10 years, corporate will not have as much reputation as it does right now. Everything will be shifted to gig works. A lot of it, I would say, in
Yes.
fact, because I think we saw that shift, especially starting with the creative industry right now. All
Yeah.
copywriters, video editors, production people, all of them are doing freelance work with the big companies instead of being employed by them. Because what ultimately happens is if I'm employed by an organization, let's say Shebang, it's a ad agency, they will pay me monthly 40,000 rupees at best for a copywriter. But if I am going as a freelancer, I get those 40,000 rupees per project. And if I have the capacity to do 2 or 3 projects in a month, then I'm earning thrice as I would have.
Yep.
Plus, then you also have your own ownership that this is my intellectual property. This is not what I have given to the company. So I think that gig work is definitely going to take off in the next couple of years. In addition to that, traditional degrees will again also go down subsequently. Right now, your BTech, MBA, all these things are very written in stone that you can't get into tech if you don't have a BTech. But if I'm hiring, let's say for Python, and somebody who is coming from a commerce background but is exceptional in Python, why would I not hire the candidate? So that mindset shift, maybe it's not there right now, but eventually I think it will come out because ultimately an organization wants the skill. I don't care if a candidate is from IIM Ahmedabad, if they can't talk properly to a client, especially in, let's say, consulting industries where everything is, how you present yourself and how you present the data. Unless you don't have those skills, it doesn't matter to me which college you're from.
Yes.
So I think degrees and this full-time employment will definitely see some shift because with the rise of Gen Z, I feel like we as a generation are very curious. I wouldn't say it's like we question everything.
Yeah.
Why do I need to go into office for 8 hours a day when all my meetings are virtual? If it's a virtual meeting, I'll just take it at home. Why do I waste 2 hours in commute? So I think the employers need to be ready for that mindset shift that's happening. We definitely saw it with millennials a couple of years ago, where they became more lenient managers, but they were still very, into the corporate mindset. I think with Gen Z, the seriousness is going away. Sometimes I also put my out of office, like, I'm out of office, don't disturb me. It's a little informal. I am still one of the Gen Zs who were the first Gen Zs, I would say, between millennial and Gen Z. So I see those with my juniors, how they dress up for office or how they talk to people. The seriousness of the corporate speak or the game of corporate, how I like to call it, is going away, which I really like because ultimately if you're having fun at work and you're getting things done, there does not need to be, a place of phrases like, I'll get back to you or let's circle back or like a low hanging fruit.
I agree. Definitely. Post-COVID, if you have correctly mentioned, right? We have seen there has been lots and lots of demand in the content industry as well. Plus, lots of gig work definitely have increased, and the potential is huge, right? And when people have seen those kind of potential, definitely everyone want to have a good life. Everyone have lots of good needs as well, right? अगर वो मिल सकता है तो क्यों नहीं?
Yes. Plus, organizations, influencer marketing budgets just blow my mind. So, as I mentioned, my friend is in a media agency. He has a lot of creative friends as well. So, whenever we meet up, we kind of, gossip about what the top creators of our industry, like of Instagram are earning. And when we hear those numbers, it blows our mind. Like, people don't even earn that much throughout their entire lives that they're earning in a month. So of course there is that attraction. When I would say when YouTube came into play, a lot of youngsters wanted to get into YouTube because they saw it as something that they can do in addition to their work, or maybe just leave their work altogether and earn money there. I think with the rise of Instagram Reels especially, that has taken so much pressure off people that, if nothing happens, I'll become a content creator. They don't understand how difficult it is in real time to get that reach and get that monetary traction from it. But still, I think it acts as a light of hope for a lot of people.
Yes. So just to give a little bit more context to the people, what kind of numbers we're talking about here, right? Because generally people in salary.
So if sometimes a big organization, they don't only spend on the collaboration amount. So let's say you are hiring me to promote Singapore Airlines. As a client, I'm a travel blogger. They will not only pay me to collaborate with them, they will also pay me for ad rights. They will also pay me for, let's say my flights, or my hotel where I'm going, or my experiences there. So ultimately, that entire collaboration ends up being in tens of lakhs or even touching crores. So that's just absolutely crazy to put into perspective in our corporate little minds where we get a monthly salary.
Yes. And have you also tried, like since you have your good connection with your friends and good connection through that industry, have you also tried different things around in that particular domain?
I think whatever I have done has always been behind the camera, not in front of it. Whatever I am trying to do in front of it, let's say like this podcast, has been my own personal branding. It has not been from an influencer side, because my intention of going into HR was always to help people. And right now also, my intention of coming here is to help people. Like, whatever is putting me in a place where I can share my knowledge is how I would say it. So I do get suggestions from my friends that you can have an Instagram page where you share HR knowledge. I'm like, no, I don't want to do that, because that commercializes the thing so much. I want to give personal one-on-one advice. So I would rather become a career coach than a content creator. That's what my perspective is. So I also have this Topmate link in my LinkedIn bio, where students can just hop on there, book a session with me, and I can help them either revamp their LinkedIn, help them with a resume, help them prepare for interviews. And since I'm in early careers, I would say I'm one of those people who take those interviews for freshers.
Yes.
So I can help them exactly talk about what a company wants to hear, what they are looking for. So I can help them with that personalized guidance.
Agree. And one of the good thing which I heard from you is like most of the HR people love helping people. And even though they are from different graduation, different courses, different certification, that one particular line connect all the HR, right? Which is helping people. So I have almost invited more than 50 people now. And when I talk to them, I try to understand why they have choose HR and all. For few, it's by choice. For few, they didn't have any other choice. By chance, you can say. But most of them, when they choose it by choice, it's because of they wanted to do something for the people, for the society, and other things as well. Hey, good to know. So let's talk about campus recruitment a little bit, right? So you have mentioned that you want to help people as well, right? So what kind of different advice you would love to give to some of the campus graduate who are at their final semesters, or let's say in their last year of their college? What kind of advice as a campus recruiter you would love to give them?
I would say right now the job market is quite bad, and I would say it would stay bad for 25 as well. So even at entry level, you might be the eligible candidate, but somebody maybe with 2 years of work ex is also applying for that job. That automatically makes the pool very larger, and you need to stand out. So whatever college you're from, we can't change that right now. But what you can change is the skills that you have. Take on certifications, take on live projects, and the most important part of it is show it on your profile. Because if you have it, you have done it, it's secret, and I don't know it, it's not reflecting well in your resume, or if it's not reflecting well in your LinkedIn profile, I as a recruiter, how am I going to know?
Yeah.
For me, you would just be another average candidate. But if you are exceptional and you are doing things that are different than usual, you should definitely talk and shout about it on top of the roof, because that's how you're going to stand out right now. And I think again that personal branding aspect again comes into play, because the pool is so large, I would say. So make sure that you are seen and then you're rejected. That's a different problem to tackle. But right now, the biggest challenge that all candidates in the market are facing is that their resume is not even getting seen.
Yes, I agree. And like you have correctly mentioned, right? There is huge pool of supply, whereas the demand is not that great, right? So definitely what in her life.
So I think again, the Gen Z aspect comes into play, that we all are very good with social media. We grew up with it. So very fun thing to talk about. But when I was in 7th, 8th, I had a fan page. So I have been one of those users of Instagram who has always been there. I've been on Instagram since I was maybe 10 or 11 years old. So I have had a long journey. So I understand social media in terms of what works, what doesn't work. But I never took action on branding myself. But when I came into HR and I realized that, you need to stand out. There's so many people. Ultimately, what gives you a job is a referral. And how do you get that referral? You build those relationships, you make sure that they understand what you are doing, and you add value to them as well. So if tomorrow I am reaching out to a CHRO for some advice, I need to make sure I can also help them with something, so that it's a symbiotic relationship. So that is, I think, very important. And personal branding helps in the sense that there are millions of HRs out there. Maybe they have more knowledge than me. But if I'm the only one talking about my knowledge, a layman will think that I'm the expert.
Yeah.
So if I feel like if you have the knowledge, you should definitely share it and be vocal about it, because that's how you will get opportunities.
I agree 100%. So one of the things which I really feel bad, even though we as a recruiter know these are the different things we need to do, networking and branding, but all recruiters currently, if I see, they are focused to their delivery expect only, right? People just come and join the community when they want to change their job. But that shouldn't be the case, right?
Exactly.
You should, in general, come to the community to share your experiences. There are lots of different opportunities out there, right? Like you have correctly mentioned, you need to build your brand before you find a job, right?
Exactly. It
Great.
should be an ongoing activity throughout the year, not
Yes.
2 months before looking for a job.
Yes. So recently I have I called few of my friends, right, whom I've started my career with different organization, right? So when I asked them, hey, can you come and join my podcast as a guest? So they told that, yeah, nahi, abhi nahi ho payega.
Say redirect them to me, I'll help them out. I'll be their ghostwriter.
So do you follow Ankur Wariko or Nikhil Kamath or any of these guys? Okay. Have you watched recently about Zepto founder visited?
I don't think I saw it, but I know I'm familiar with the story of Zepto.
Okay, great. So let's talk a little bit about Gen Z and millennial candidates. So how has your campus hiring evolved? The expectation meet with respect to Gen Zs and millennials candidates and all. Like how, in general, what is the expectation? How, because every individual is different, every generation is different. How is their expectation different when you are talking to them in the campus and all?
I think when we go to campus, we are not only looking for a good candidate, we are also selling a company. You change your sales pitch as per the audience. So the sales pitch that we are following right now is like a greater emphasis on purpose-driven work. So if it's a healthcare organization, you sell what the mission and the vision of the company is. You know, activities that we're doing in terms of DEI, let's say, or helping our employees get better job opportunities within the organization, showing what their career growth looks like. I think that is a very big thing. Plus, shift to virtual engagements is also another thing that we're looking at. With, so much technology, we have the advantage of implementing AI in a lot of things. I don't think anybody is doing that right now. But one idea that I have is what it could look like in the future is that for candidate engagement, AI chatbots can be used. So right now, if I'm hiring 500 candidates, I would say 450 of them will have the same query on how do I make my profile? How do I upload the documents? Is this right? Is this wrong? So instead of a person doing all of that, those very general, very basic questions, an AI can handle, which reduces my workload, which helps me think more about the strategic aspects of my job. So I think that implementation of technology in the hiring process, focus on diversity as in what the diversity of the company looks like, and focus on a candidate's career growth within the organization are the 2 or 3 things that we sell the candidate on.
Okay. And is it the same with millennial or the Gen Zs? Definitely you have your seniors as well, right, who have different experiences. Is the expectation same or it have changed gradually?
I would say for millennials, I think they are the generation which is now approaching parenthood. Yeah. So for them, the stability aspect is very important. For Gen Z, the excitement, the learning, the newness is more important. Whereas for millennial group, money and stability, work-life balance, flexibility are more aspects that I would personally touch upon.
Okay. Great. So you have also spoken about AI recently, right? So have you seen any kind of changes AI have brought into picture in terms of campus recruitment in general, right?
My God, AI is I would say, my arch enemy right now, because there are so many tools out there which help you interview in real time. They help you cheat. They tell you answers. So if we're doing a virtual interview, sometimes we have to do it. We can't do all interviews in person.
Yeah,
if we're doing a virtual interview, we have to train our panel as well, that this is how you look at, this candidate is cheating. Those AI tools are so smart. Even if you share your screen, they do not show up. Or maybe they have like a secret phone setup going on here. And you have to look at the body language of the candidate very carefully to understand if they're cheating or not. So that's why AI is just making my life very tough right now in terms of cheating. But I think if I were to implement it in HR, there are endless possibilities. So it will be a very big help.
Yes. So I think to solve this AI problem, I think there are lots of initial build companies, products, which are there in the market. So one of my good friend, he is a co-founder of a company named called Tech Hire. So they have a very good product to help recruiters or panelists to resolve this problem of cheating. They have also applied for patent and other things as well. And it gives you more than 90% plus accurate result that what the candidate is doing, from which platform they're cheating, what are the different options they might cheat. So they highlight each and every corner cases as well. right? So there are solution coming up, but again, it's in a very early stage, I would say. So as a campus recruiter, how often do you use AI?
I think right now that implementation has not begun yet. At least in my organization, everything is in ideation stage. We will definitely start putting out the application of it very soon. But right now, I think a lot of organizations are still just embracing what is going on, thinking how they can implement. In data analytics and all, HR data analytics, it's very straightforward how you can take help. But in recruitment, as such, of course, yes, you can do ATS and all that. But I feel like that's also a problem. It's not giving out the best candidates all the time. So that refinement definitely needs to be there, and the organization that I'm a part of, it's a huge one. So we need a legacy platform before we can bring it in. So maybe if I was working in a startup, I could have experimented with the upcoming platforms. But because I'm a big established organization, I cannot do a trial run. If I'm launching it, it's launching globally at a very large scale. So I would say it would take 1.5 years before we start doing it. But when we do it, it would definitely be a reliable platform.
Okay. And as an individual, right? Have you started using AI, ChatGPT, Gemini, or any other different tools?
Use
And how do
DeepSeek
you
and
use them?
ChatGPT a lot. Sometimes it's as simple as if I'm gotten a really long email and I just don't feel like reading through it, I'm just like upload and like give me a summary of it. Or sometimes if I'm sending out an important email, I'm like, make it sound professional, make it sound polite, all of that. So it does help out with the phrasing of things and all of that. But AI has a very cute tendency of adding its own information many times. So I do need to, at the end of the day, vet whatever it has. And instead they relied on encyclopedias or like offline sources. But eventually Google became so big, you don't have a life without it. And I think AI will become that huge in a couple of years, so it's easier to learn it when it's still building, so that you increase your expertise as the time goes on instead of directly picking up a very advanced tool.
Agree. Great. So we have talked little bit serious topic now. Let's talk little bit about, again, Mahek, right? So during weekends, what you love to do the most, Mahek? I
think during weekends I like to go out, just have fun with my friends, or like explore. I live in Delhi, so explore new things that are happening around, attend some events. There are a lot of events happening. So just kind of replenish my energy for the upcoming week, essentially.
Okay. Which part of Delhi you are from?
I'm from West Delhi, but I
Okay.
mostly kind of go around in South Delhi. But
Okay.
Delhi is very small. We are one big family. Delhi is Delhi.
Okay. And I have been to Delhi like when I was working with Adobe. So I didn't get much opportunity to explore Delhi. So for our audience who would love to go to Delhi, any good places, what they can do when they're in Delhi? So I think Delhi is a very culture-rich city. So if you're looking at heritage sites, I would say Central Delhi, South Delhi is your place to be. There are so many monuments you can go at, and so many hidden gems as well. If you're a foodie, then West Delhi is the place to be. Roadside thelas, you get the best food. But if you want like a sophisticated palate, you have a sophisticated palate, you can go to South Delhi or Central Delhi and go to legacy restaurants. Then activity-wise, I think it's everywhere. Right now, pickleball is the thing to do, and like run clubs are happening, even though I am not a run person, but they do runs every weekends. So that is something that you can explore. It's a very nice community you can be a part of. And pickleball, I think there are so many courts right now. Sometimes I also go on weekends and play pickleball with my friends. So it's a nice activity to do. I think it offers very holistic activities for everybody. Whatever you want to do, it is there. If not in Delhi, then in NCR region, it's definitely there. So be it sports, be it food, be it shopping, you have everything. Okay, great. So you love to explore things, right, in general. Okay, great. Good to know. And who all in general in your family are? Like, are they from service background? Are they from a business background? And how did you, like, the reason why I'm asking, then because you did your commerce, then you choose HR because you had the feeling of helping people. Just to understand from a family perspective, because my family, my dad was into service background. So he wanted me to go to jobs and other things. So what about your background? So my mom was a teacher and my dad has been working in corporate since forever. So I have always seen the behind the scenes and realities of corporate. So nobody pushed me into it. I just kind of knew that this is what I want to do. I would love to go into a business if I ever feel like I have a good idea. I'm definitely open to it because I feel like that's where the real money lies. If you're working for yourself, you get so much profit that it makes sense. Like if I'm working on my own business for 12 hours a day, I would get more result out of it if I'm working on 12 hours for a corporate. So I know that the reality is there. So I'm waiting for a nice idea to hit me in the head so that I can resign and start my own business. Yes. Right. The practical application matters. Yes, but you also had your practical application through your social entrepreneurship journey, right? Yes, that was very fun. It was because it was a group of us friends who were doing all of it. Even the work was made fun for us. So this question is for any aspiring recruiter who would love to become a campus recruiter or in general a recruiter, right? So what kind of skills do you think these recruiters should develop in their early days so that they can become an early career recruiter or in general any recruiter? Yeah, I think this again ties back to the AI thing that I was talking about, that you should be tech savvy because this thing is going to take off. So if you're planning to start your career, be
mentally prepared to deal with a lot of technology. I think another skill that they should have is to interpret the data. The data is available everywhere. What you make sense of it is what will make you stand out. So tech savviness, data literacy, and of course, since we're in the HR business, emotional intelligence is very important. You should understand how you need to behave with your stakeholders, be it your candidates, or be it your hiring managers, or be it the leadership of the company. I think I lost you again.
Sorry, I think it's my internet only. Okay, great. So you were talking about like what are the skills?
Am I audible now?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yes. So what the answer that I had given that's gone, or do I need to repeat? I think I can't hear you again.
Sorry again.
It's okay.
Yeah.
Sometimes Wi-Fi just gives up on us at the very last minute.
Yeah, I think from last 2 days that we had a connection and there has been some issue.
Okay. Yes.
Yeah, you were talking about like the skills required. Yeah.
So I had given the answer. Was that recorded, or do I need to repeat?
I am not sure.
So I think tying back to the AI thing that I was talking about earlier, tech savviness is really important. You need to make sure that you have a hold on what the technology is there and how you can learn it and how you can master it. That I think is very important. And second thing would be data literacy. A lot of data is available everywhere. What you need to ensure is that you interpret it correctly for your stakeholders. And since we're in the HR business, of course, emotional intelligence is something that is non-negotiable. Anything can be, exempted except for social intelligence. You need to understand how you're dealing with your stakeholders, you're dealing with your hiring managers, candidates, leadership. You need to understand what they want and how you can give it to them. So that emotional intelligence aspect, I think, is the most important one out of these three.
Yeah. And how does your day-to-day work look like as well? If you can quickly tell about those things, because definitely they can grab the skills, but if they don't know what they're going to get, it might not help them connect the dots. So if you can also help them, what your day-to-day work look like in office?
So my work looks like I talk to a lot of colleges. I do hiring drives with them. So they completely know what the hiring drive is like. So I'll skip on that. Then I ensure that their background verification is done, offer process. There are a lot of internal compliance needs that we need to meet throughout these processes. So we ensure all of that is done. We talk to candidates a lot who are in the offer process to make sure that they understand what is expected out of them. They do the processes correctly. Then we do a lot of engagement activities for it, execution for it, strategizing for the next year. All of these, I would say, are some of the chunks that we work on. My personal favorite is always the marketing, the employer branding aspect of it. So, but that's just me. In my team, all of us have our own favorite things. Some people like to really look at how they can improve the process of it. Some people like to look at how they can improve the experience. So all of us have our own little expertise that we work together on, ultimately enhance the candidate experience.
And how big is the team in general? And how many in year you have to hire campus folks?
So the number of hires that we do definitely changes as per the business demand. It has also been under 100 a year, and it has also crossed 1,000 in a year. So the range is very big. It totally depends on what the market situation is and what the business demand looks like, what the attrition rate has been for the past year. My team size, it is quite huge. So in my organization, early careers or campus is not a part of TA. It is a separate vertical in itself. It's a global team that we're a part of. And I think we're more than 40-50 people. So across US, Ireland, Philippines, Puerto Rico, India, we're very big early careers.
Global team. What do you think about I'm a Recruiter community, and what do you think we are doing good, and what other things we can do better?
I think these communities are definitely a backbone of a profession, because ultimately what happens is every company has a lot of people in it, and so many times you're doing things inefficiently. But if you bring those people together, you can share those best practices, and those best practices will incite even better ideas, and that compounding effect of intelligence will happen. And so these communities are very important, because that's how we learn from each other. That's how we interact. Today, I might not go on LinkedIn and text a recruiter saying, how do you do this? But if there is already a community, I can just drop a WhatsApp message, be like, hey, I'm from this organization, I'm facing this challenge, can you guys help me out? So that's, I would say, the biggest asset any company also has is a community. So I am a recruiter is basically a community of our profession. So it's very helpful. What we can do better, I am not sure. I think we're doing very good stuff. Podcasts like these, or the emailers that you sent out, all of these things add so much value. Even if you just skim it, you kind of understand what the industry trend is looking like.
Sure. Great. So with this, I think we are almost on the time.
Yes.
So first of all, thank you so much once again.
Thank you
for your time. I know it's a weekday, but again, like we have found some time for ourselves to talk and give back to the community. And also we have discussed lots of different things from campus hiring. We have also talked about what are the different skills we need, right? We also talked about personal branding as well, why it's important, right? And overall, like I think the discussion
I really enjoyed. You're a very good host.
No, I'm just trying. I'm just learning to become a good host, because even I'm not comfortable, to be very honest, right? But day by day, like, so if you see, I have kept my first video in YouTube, right? when I thought of having or creating a community. At that time, I was very nervous. I was very shy. Somehow I have recorded. And after that, like it's been a journey almost 1+ year now. Now at least I'm able to connect with people, able to talk to them, make them comfortable. So yeah, it's a journey overall.
All of us are learning.
Yes,
That's really amazing.
But once again, thank you so much, Mehak. It was a wonderful journey and discussion. And for all our audience, Mehak is available in LinkedIn. So you can search for Mehak Ramdev. So if you want to connect with her, she have her top links as well. So feel free to connect with her. And for the students, if you want some tips about your resume, about your LinkedIn profile, she is a great recruiter who can help you build your LinkedIn profile as well as your resume as well. So once again, thank you and all the best, and looking forward for more discussion in future.
Definitely.